Kurt from the Jodo cast here. I just wanted to show a hobby project that I've been working on for over a year and a half now. Off and on, mostly off. I've been working on this starship, a piece of terrain to use on the tabletop. And would you believe it, it originally started life as a child's toy from Buzz Lightyear. So I'm just gonna walk you through the whole process of turning this into this, starting from the very beginning. What do we have here? It's a Disney Pixar Lightyear, Zurg's mothership. It doesn't come fully assembled actually, so that's actually kind of nice I think for our purposes. We're probably going to remove these spikes anyways, and they do not come on it. There's the little robot guy in his drop pod, which is like about Legion scale, almost, maybe a little bigger than a guy. I actually have a guy here. We can compare it. That's like pretty close to like what a B2 battle droid would be if I went and grabbed one. So maybe there's some way to do something with that too. Maybe like a little objective marker or something. I like the little drop pod. These are the tips of the prongs on the ship. They must have electronics in them, or maybe they shoot out or something. Those are a separate part. Let's pull the rest of this out here. There's some choking hazards and stuff, so we'll have to be careful about that, but seems like a pretty cool model here. Very detailed and a lot of greeblies. Lots of like little spikes and stuff, which I think actually looks kind of cool, even though it's not super Star Warsy. The engines on the back are pretty cool. You gotta have a lot of engines on a Star Wars ship. Maybe could even have more, I don't know, we'll see. You gotta figure out what we're even gonna try to do to customize it, come up with. Feels like it needs a loading ramp. I don't have any Shatterpoint minis on me, but do have some Legion ones. So like this Mandalorian standing on here seems like he's like pretty close to scale, don't you think? I mean, it's all relative. Maybe it's bigger. Maybe it's bigger in the movie. Maybe it's supposed to be some giant, massive cruiser. I don't know. But it looks like it could be like a slightly smaller than Millennium Falcon sized. At Legion scale for sure, a Millennium Falcon would be a lot bigger than this. Months and months later, I finally have finished up a little bit of progress to get this thing ready to paint. There's a bunch of little details I wanted to add. You can see that there's random green stuffing, and I opened up the inside. I took out all the guts, the electronics, circuit board and wires. I just decided I'm gonna pull those out because they're just not necessary. I don't know. Glued all those panels shut, tried to gap fill some of those joints for the openable parts as best as I could. There was a little piece inside this little compartment that I spent like, I don't know, hours trying to rip out. It was so hard to rip out and probably not worth it, but for some reason I felt like doing it. Also glued the landing struts down, chopped off a bunch of the random like spiky bits and tried to like fill some of those gaps as well as I could, though it's pretty sloppy. Glued on some of the few wings that I do actually want to keep. You know, a ship needs visible guns, so I have these like sort of blaster cannons coming out of the front that are made from a couple glued together shotgun barrels from a different game. I also added this gun here in kind of the middle slot. That's from a Dwarf Spider Droid for Legion. I figured it's like, you know, a little ion cannon here on this gun, just looks kind of cool. And then this really kind of hacky, junky looking cockpit, because ultimately I decided like at this scale, like at Shatterpoint scale, this is like sort of a small shuttle size, and it's not really like tall enough that people can be, in my opinion, like walking around in these corridors. They would be like crawl spaces. So I figure it has to have like a visible cockpit, in my opinion. So I threw that together. Also like glued some wires to it to make it look kind of extra junky and industrial. These were some of the wires from the inside. So yeah, finally making some progress. Oh yeah, also, I didn't even mention that I ended up adding little custom scratch-built landing gear under the bottom too, because how I've got it with the weight on the front landing gear and the wings, I thought like that's not quite stable enough for this piece of terrain, so I wanted something in the middle, so I just added a couple little feet sticking out, so hopefully it will sit with the weight like evenly distributed. Well, I'm here with Vivi, and we just put our first coat of paint on the ship. Just to start, I thought a solid black across the whole thing felt like it made sense, just to make sure it's got a good prime on it. I just finished the last base coat color. I did gray on the underside, and then I did a white on the top for all the whole playing. So the gray was Army Painter uniform gray, and then the white I just did Wraithbone. I pulled all the masking tape off just now. I'd put on, so first I put it over these engine pieces because I wanted to keep the cool green plastic showing through. I did later realize that I missed these parts here were also a green plastic showing through, so I missed those before those got base coated. I did a mask over this weird speaker circuitry that's showing through, but I probably should have just base coated that. I don't know, it's certainly looking more like a ship at this point. This is just a quick time lapse of some of the painting steps progressing over several days. Basically, I layered on all the details a little bit at a time. I used a piece of paper to try and get straight lines when I was putting the various stripes on. Then I did a bunch of weathering, adding a bunch of chips and scratches, stuff like that. So for that, I used a sponge for some of it and a brush for a lot of it as well, just kind of depending on my mood. I did a partial Nuln Oil wash and some highlighting to just make it pop a little bit. I also added some tiny warning text in different spots, like decals on a jet. I just thought that would add some interesting detail to it. Well, here's the final product. I finished up all the little details I wanted to add, other than the bottom, which I ended up deciding not to paint, even though a lot of times I might actually do the bottom. Figured it just wasn't worth the effort here. All the weathering and all the other little details are done, so I think I'm pretty satisfied with it. Hopefully we'll get it on the table sometime, and I guess watch this space in case we have some more tabletop terrain hobby project stuff to show off in the future.